Hello, and welcome back to the Can You Dig It podcast, where we dig down, dig deep, and dig into the process of self-discovery and personal growth. I'm here with Jessica Rebello from Unleash Potential Life Coaching. I'm Jordan Nocht from The Center, and we're bringing you together about 2+ decades of both counseling and coaching experience to explore both the theory, but most importantly, the application. That's what we're very big on, of subjects in mental health, emotional awareness, and I'm going to mention it again, personal growth. So without further ado, today's episode title is Showing Up. And I'm going to give it over to my partner here. What is showing up? What the heck are we talking about? Why are we talking about it? And why am I already uncomfortable and feeling like I have to do more and be better?
So showing up is literally what it sounds like, is showing up. It's showing up for yourself in some way, shape, or form, whatever that might be. So showing up could be included in doing a little bit of an assignment each and every day. It could be working out each and every day, or it could be just showing up and dealing with an emotion when it comes up, right? It's shown throughout our entire lives, no matter what age, no matter what gender, we are all always showing up.
Interesting. Are we all always showing up, or is there an opposite? Is there an antithesis to showing up that we're
of course
today?
of course.
What would that look like?
I think that would look like a little avoidance. And we all love avoidance. We do.
Mm-hmm.
It's comfortable. The comfort zone for some of us. I can't say for everybody.
No, it's true. But one of my favorite things to say is you can't spell avoid without the word void. And
I like that.
If we avoid, we're going to feel a void, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. We're going to have to distract ourselves from. We're acting on fear, basically, even if it's a small avoidance, like, I'll clean up tomorrow, or I'll hit the snooze button. Yep. Right? I'm avoiding waking up. There are little ones, and then there's big ones, right? I'm avoiding breaking up with the relationship I know I need to, or I'm avoiding moving in with a partner because I'm afraid to. There's big ones and there's little ones.
Absolutely.
But if we act on fear enough, that's what I find too. And I guess, we're always going to talk about subjects in mental health, like anxiety. Clients who have anxiety issues, there is avoidance underneath the surface, and sometimes on the surface, but underneath that surface, we find acts of avoidance pretty much every minute. There's something.
Because that's safety, right? That's how we keep ourselves safe. I mean, for those who suffer with anxiety, I think especially, like, their safety is to avoid. That's the only one of the only ways they know how to self-soothe. It's a self-soothing mechanism. So yeah, it works really well for some aspects or components of their lives, but it kind of goes against a lot of other things, and it, kind of gets them stuck in other ways.
Definitely.
Why do you think people have a hard time showing up? Like, where do you think people get stuck with that?
That's a really good question. I mean, I showed up for this podcast today, so hey, I did my job.
Sure did.
I really didn't want to, it's a Friday, it's after Thanksgiving. I'm still all tryptophaned out and I just want to chill and sleep. But that's what's in turkey, right? Isn't that what it's called?
I think so.
I didn't just make up a word, right?
You might have.
Tripping on tryptophan. So what keeps people from showing up? I think there are layers to it, right? I think there's the surface stuff of, like, on the surface, all I know is I have this urge to just play. I just want to play video games, or I just want to watch TV, or I would rather just be on Instagram. I don't know what to tell you. It's not deeper than that. I want to be on Instagram. Why do I have to analyze it? I want to scroll on my phone. I want to play Angry Birds, whatever it might be. And then there's the layers of, like, but where does that come from? How come you have that urge whereas other people don't? So I think we would go a little bit further beneath the surface, and we would talk more about paradigms.
What do you
mean? So paradigm would be like a belief I have about life, a belief I have about myself.
Okay.
Because let's be real, if there's things that we know, if and when we do them, they're either going to help us reach the goal we want to get to, short term or long term. Or we know that when we're aligned, and if I'm exercising every day, meditating, writing, reading, like doing healthy things that are on my accountability list. If I
Mhm.
show up for all those things, even if it's just a little, if I
Mhm.
show up for all those things, at the end of the day, I am going to feel good. I am going to feel deeply at peace with life, with myself,
Mhm.
as opposed to maybe being a little on edge
Mhm.
or not going to bed totally at peace with myself,
Mhm.
waking up on the wrong side of the bed the next day because of it.
Mhm.
So if I know for a fact that if I show up, I'm going to feel that sense of peace, why would I not pursue it? Why would I not act accordingly? That's
Mhm. Mhm.
right. So then I guess deep down there's a belief that either it's not leading me to that goal, or maybe I can't do it, or if I do it, it won't be enough, or
Mhm.
there's no reinforcement. I do it, but I don't see any results. Well,
Mhm.
where would you go any further with those beliefs?
I think fear is a big element in this too. I think
Hmm.
human beings, we are creatures of habit, right? We do
Hmm.
the same routine almost every day, negative or positive doesn't matter. We fall into these routines that we do. And I think anything that wants to like poke the routine or change it seems really scary and seems really overwhelming. So it's like, well, how can I even do that? Right? Like that's too much, that's too big, like avoidance. Can't do it. I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing, regardless if I have a belief that it's going to be helpful for me or not. Right? Like just purely out of fear, I think gets people stuck in that and then they don't do anything with it. And a lot of clients that I work with, a lot of the like first step that I teach them is like there's an accountability point to yourself of like, who are you showing up for?
Hmm.
Are you showing up for mom? Are you showing up for dad? Are you showing up for your boss? Are you showing up for you? Because if you're showing up for yourself, that's where you're going to feel it most. If you're
Hmm.
showing up for someone else, and if that's a prior engagement, fine, right? We have to show up for other people too. But if you're only showing up for another person and not at all for yourself, where it doesn't feel correct, or you feel like you needed to put a boundary there, like, all right, we need to talk about that. Fine, but it's steps, right? All of this comes in steps, and I think you teach pretty similarly to how I teach in my sessions too, of like breaking something down to as small as it needs to be, so it's as
Hmm.
safe as it needs to be for a client, as comfortable as it needs to be for a client. And once it's safe and comfortable and tangible, and we identified it, and we're doing it for the right reason, I think it makes it a little bit easier to do.
Yeah, and I'm gonna. There were a few things you talked about there that kind of seems like it set the foundation for this whole podcast. Boy, that was good. That was good. Good thing I was taking notes because you're too
I'm just
smart.
rambling here.
You say too many smart things. I can't keep up with you. So bear with my stupidity for a moment as I
Oh,
look
stop
at
it.
my notes. um, so one of the things you said was like relating to like we don't do it because of fear. And I guess where I go with that is why do we go to fear?
Mhm.
And the word I wrote down in my bullet point here was hardwired. And the reason I wrote down the
Mhm.
word hard is because we are hardwired for survival.
Yep.
So anything, right? If we have this comfort zone, we have these habits, and we have these things that we know since early childhood have worked, such as avoidance, right? That's a
Mhm.
good example. And we know that they have worked. Our brain likes them, it wants them, it is urging us in that direction at all times. Number one, because it can use as little energy as possible because it's comfortable. We know this is safe. I don't have to be hyper alert. I don't have to go into fight or flight mode. I'm safe. I'm
Mhm.
good. Less oxygen to the brain, less pumping of the heart. We can live
Mhm.
longer. We're safe. We're calm, right? The brain is hardwired to go in those directions.
Mhm.
So, from a survival evolutionary standpoint, anything outside our comfort zone is a threat.
Mhm.
Even if objectively you've talked to enough coaches, counselors, whoever, friends, family, and you've all agreed, and you know it, and you agree that this is exactly the direction I need to go. Yeah, but I don't get the urge to go there. Like I don't feel like I want to go there.
Mhm.
How come? Well, because
Mhm.
it's not comfortable. It's
Mhm.
scary, you
Oh
know?
yeah.
It's it is scary. It's scary to the brain because we don't know if we're going to survive in that area. We just, again, as people, we don't realize underneath the surface urges. That's what's really happening. The
Mhm.
chemicals in the brain are doing that, keeping you alive and comfortable.
Mhm.
So, oh, go
Do
ahead.
you Do you feel like there's a way to not change the hardwire, because we can't change the hardwire. The hardwire exists, right? But I guess, like, how do you how would somebody work on that, right? If we're able to label, like, "Okay, this is my hardwiring, and I am fearful, and even though my friends and families and counselors and coaches and whomever are saying this is a good thing for me, but I still can't get there."
Mm,
What, like, how do you go against that, right? Because I feel like a hardwire is really, really ingrained in all of us. We all have our own. That that's probably a really big step in all of this, I would assume.
yeah, I mean, what do we do for a living, right? That's it in a nutshell. That's such a huge part of it. And the answer is, in short, I don't know. I quit. I guess I should find a different job. No, my answer would be the first step in that, and I really need to hammer this point home. The first step in that would be to own and accept the fact that this is not going to change overnight. That
I
is the
love that.
most important thing because it is gonna be a battle. You are gonna have to
Mhm,
show up and fight every day.
mhm,
And, I'm speaking to the average American here. I'll be honest with you. I'm speaking to our culture. I'm speaking to the average person because there are ways to approach all this stuff where you are committed to and practicing mindfulness or meditation, and you're able to legitimately relax into the new patterns. There
mhm,
are ways to do that. And I have clients who work with me on that. I record them guided motivation, guided meditation, guided
mhm,
imagery, and they are much more readily able to relax into it. And I use that word relax into this new direction, this new flow.
mhm.
The average person's just not going to do it if we're
No,
if we're being real, right?
no.
We're a very action oriented society. We're human doings rather than human beings.
Interesting.
So we have to own
Mhm.
that, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much who we're talking to here.
Mhm,
So that being said, step number one, acceptance. This is going to be a battle. This is going to be a fight. And ideally, you're going to want to act the opposite of how you're usually acting. I want to say the opposite, but uncomfortably, right? And
mhm,
it's not blind. It's not one size fits all. It's not every situation.
mm-mm,
It's certain things. So it's going to be uncomfortable and it's not going to happen overnight. And you're going to mess up. You're going to fail.
mhm,
You're going to make mistakes. You will recenter quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker till
mhm,
you are at one with this new process. It is your center.
mhm.
But until it's a new habit, which takes time, that's it's gonna be difficult. Go ahead. What do you
So a lot of patience, right? Like, what you're explaining is, like, somebody having a lot of patience with themselves of, like, their own progress and their own journey in this, and
Mhm.
also not expecting that immediate gratification of, like, "Well, I'm doing this today, so it needs to be fixed by tomorrow."
Right.
Right? Like, the philosophy of, like, "I need this done now." No, this is a journey, this is a process,
Yep.
and it's going to take time, and there needs to be a lot of forgiveness of the self and a lot of patience of the self, and like you're saying, you're gonna mess up, you're gonna fall down, but tomorrow will probably be a little bit easier, even if it's 1% easier. I'm huge on the 1%, right? I say this to my clients all the time, and if any of my clients are listening, they're probably gonna be laughing right now. If something is 1% better, it was worth it. I
Yeah.
don't care how that 1% looks. If it is literally 1% better, job well done. Pat yourself on the back.
Right.
And I think going with what you're saying, like, a lot of that philosophy is needed in order to go against this hardwiring, in order to move away from it, right? And do some change within it.
Right. Absolutely. And there was a great, I forget the podcast I heard it on. It was a great metaphor. And what they were talking about was how the mind is kind of, very much a blank slate as we're born. And our neural pathways, right? Our comfort zones, our hard wiring, so to speak, right? The most foundational points of our brain are created by, let's say it's just a giant open grassy field. And that's it, right? It's like the wild, wild west. There's nothing there. you know we're going to take this path once, right? Ooh,
Mhm,
I cried and I got fed, or I cried and I got attention. Good to know. And then we're going to walk back. We're going to take that path again. We're going to take the path again. We're going to take the path again. And then over time, as we get older, get into adolescence, get into adulthood, we've taken certain paths so many times, those paths get paved. They become 2 lane, four
mm,
lane, they become highways. And what ends up happening is we have these like super highways in our brain, some of them, in relation to what we're talking about earlier, very avoidance based superhighways,
Mhm.
avoid 95, we would call it, instead of Interstate 95, right? Like we have these super highways in our brain that we take all the freaking time.
Mhm.
And most of us are moving so fast all the time that we know we're on these super highways.
Mhm.
So again, so another recommendation after acceptance, slow down.
Mhm.
I think that really feeds into the 1%.
Mhm.
Don't feel like you have to do 20% today, 20% tomorrow, 100%.
Correct.
No, no, no. Slow down.
Mhm.
Slow down and just relax into this new flow, these new
Mhm.
habits. And I think that third step after you've accepted and you're ready to slow down a little, you've purposely like prepared yourself to move a little slower throughout the day, think a little, like constantly taking deep breaths to slow yourself down.
Mhm.
Okay, so what do I actually do? And that goes into something you said earlier, another bullet point I took from that wonderful rant you went on, which was that was not in a negative way at all. I'm only complimenting but it was a total, you were going. It was awesome.
It's on
Um,
fire, apparently.
don't ever talk again. That's what I'm
No.
saying. But structure and
Mhm.
breaking it down into small, simple, safe, approachable steps.
Mhm.
And that might look like, just read 2 pages a day in a book on self-awareness,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know?
It could be even smaller as make your bed when you wake up in the morning.
Right, right,
This way you accomplish something, right?
right.
And I think that's just at least what I've seen with change, and I'm sure you'll agree to this, is the most effective change, lasting change, um, consistent change that I've seen, it's when you go in a really small, like slow and steady wins the race,
Mm,
right? It's small steps, small little changes here and there. So it is as comfortable as it can be. And then you build a momentum, right? Then it's like, oh, wow, I did that. I read 2 pages of that book yesterday. Maybe I could read three today.
mm,
And maybe you read three. And then it's like, oh my God, I did this 2 days in a row. Let's see if I could go for a third day, right? Like we get this momentum. And once we start with the momentum, we start to see a positive benefit in showing up.
mm,
And then we remember that. It's like we store that in our brain. This is a positive memory. Remember this. This is going to be worth it. And
right,
then on that fourth day, it's like, I could still do this, right? Like then you get going,
right.
but you are already getting a piece of it that's positive. And I think that's what kind of pushes people to keep going with really anything.
Totally. And I think it's the perfect analogy is, just think about physical exercise like that.
Mhm.
In the
Mhm.
beginning, if you're not used to doing it or you've stepped away from it for a long time or it's not who you are,
Mhm.
right? If you're not hardwired in that direction, like some people are, those lucky ones, but it's really hard to just get disciplined with going to the gym. You just don't want to. I don't want to
Mhm.
go for a run. I don't want to go to the gym. But if I start doing just a little bit every day, a little bit every day, it does feel good.
Oh
It
yeah.
does,
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
Even if you went for 5 minutes,
Right. It's so true. Well, like
right?
so small steps. Go for a walk. Go for a
Mhm.
5-minute walk down the block.
Mhm.
Just start showing up.
Mhm.
Build the muscle of showing up. You
Correct.
it's all when we say showing up, it almost reminds me of like you're building the muscle of self-discipline or willpower. Would that be the same
Mhm.
thing or
It,
similar? What do you think?
I think so. I think willpower is a big part of this because it's willpower and it's commitment, right? And accountability, I guess. I don't know. My brain's going everywhere right now. But it's like willpower that I can do this and I want to do this. And
Right.
then it's commitment to the self of like, well, you're worth this. So I'm going to do this. And then it's holding yourself accountable. And then you're also your coach. I think this is the
Mm,
magical thing of a coaching relationship. Us as coaches, like we hold our clients accountable in session, out of session, texting, phone calls all the time, right? I will
right.
tell people when you finish your action step on whatever workout, shoot me a text, let me know how it goes. And I'll talk to how was it? How did you feel? What did your body say? What was the response? Right. And it's like, all right, great. Talk to you next session. Keep up the great work. And I think we love that validation,
Mm,
right? We love that, like, oh, keep going. You're doing a great job. Yes, this is, and I think when it comes to showing up and when it comes to not changing the hardwire, but going against the hardwire,
mm,
you it's really helpful to have a cheerleader on your side going down the path with you.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It really does help. Is
Hmm.
it required and, utterly necessary? Uh,
No,
there are people who do
no.
it without it for what it's worth.
Hmm.
But, we can attest. I mean, how often in the past month or two outside of this podcast have you and I talked about holding each other accountable to something? And sometimes
Hmm.
it's just general, like, will you text me and follow up on dot, dot, dot? And
Hmm.
sometimes it's an action point where you and I know that it ain't going to get done if we don't say by Friday, the flyer for the groups is getting done,
Correct.
like, which was last week's accountability with one another, right? And we
Yep.
were texting about it. And if you hadn't texted me about it, I hate to say it, like, would I have done it? I'd like to
Hmm.
think I would have. It's possible I would have been like, she'll be okay if I do it Sunday, and then
Hmm.
Sunday turns into Tuesday, and then
Of
Tuesday
course.
turns into So
Hmm.
we allow ourselves to kind of avoid it without the accountability there.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Well, and I've used this word on here before. I'll use it plenty. It's my favorite word. Accountability buddies. Find an accountability buddy. Find one.
I love that.
Find someone. It's so corny. It's the
I
worst word.
love it. I
But it's
love
like
it.
the
It's so
worst,
corny.
the best, worst word ever.
It's like a dad joke.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, accountability buddy. Well,
Right.
and
Like so
like, it
bad that it's
needs to
good
be
that
a
you love it.
cartoon character.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't drink so much coffee, but
Maybe not. Decaf next time only, please.
yeah, really, I'll still be wired.
Mm.
But no, there
No.
are, and that's one thing I'm excited for with, like the groups that we're starting, right? It's a forum to hold yourself accountable, to talk
Mhm.
about your wins from the week, talk about your progress, talk about your accountability, celebrate the success, celebrate the mistakes. I
Mhm.
wasn't accountable this day, but I will say before I went to bed, I was feeling like miserable, and I was aware, like I was for the really like my aware, I was so aware that my awareness had increased.
Mhm.
Of it's a funny thing to say, right? I was aware that
Mhm.
I was aware, but I never used to even be aware. I never used to think about it. So before
Mhm.
I went to bed, I purposely read just a couple pages. I took some deep breaths and had a healthy conversation with myself and practiced some positive self-talk, and then went to bed.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I can say I did do a little. I would say I did 1 or 2% today.
Excellent. That's a win.
Were you doing that last week? Were you doing that last year? Would the awareness
Exactly.
even be would have even been there a month ago? So,
Mhm.
and that was a conversation I had with a client this morning, actually, was like, you should be so freaking proud of yourself because your awareness, the first time I met you, you wouldn't have been close to saying the things you're saying today.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like that's you should be so proud of yourself. But again, we don't see that. We very rarely step outside of ourselves and look at ourselves,
No. No.
you know? So to have someone else be able to say, like, from the outside, it's literally my job to analyze you as a growing healthy plant. Are you
Mhm.
growing or are you withering? No, you are
Mhm.
growing. You should be
Yeah.
proud of you. You really should.
Mhm.
You should be proud of you. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
So I went on a little tangent there, but
That's all right. You're
uh,
allowed. It's a good
that
story.
reminds me. And so as I just said that, we do these weekly recommendations, right?
Mm.
And what I just said, stepping outside yourself and looking at yourself reminded me of it. So today's episode title is Showing Up. And, Jessica and I had the pleasure of working with a wonderful, wonderful psychotherapist, hypnotherapist named Janet Philbin, who wrote a book called Show Up for Yourself. I own the book. I've read the book. I will probably read it again because there's so much good stuff in it. That stuff I want to steal and make my own for the podcast. So I sound smart because she's so freaking smart. But
She's brilliant.
the best way to describe the book is it's very application oriented. There is theory, there is understanding, there is education in there, but it's very geared towards actual growth and how you do it. So how do I
Mhm.
do it? It's very, very helpful like that. And I would say it's kind of a blend between like Western psychology, Eastern philosophy coming together. That's where a lot of her perspectives come from. That's the foundation. And then the application is like stepping back from and creating a relationship and looking at your inner child.
Mm.
Looking at this, like anytime I get angry, anytime I get afraid, my patterns of avoidance, my relationship patterns, all of this is stuff that was quote unquote hardwired
Mhm.
or, super highways were created when we were kids. So a lot of times it's that inner child who's running the show as an adult, and we wonder why we're miserable or anxious or depressed or something along those lines. And it's because you're not in charge. You're not an empowered, vibrant, creating type of person. You're pretty much a victim to this inner child. They're running
Mhm.
the show. So a lot of what this book, those weren't Janet's words. Those were my own. I don't even know if she would say those words. But what she does is it helps you externalize that inner child
Mhm.
and really look at, talk to, reparent, recondition, heal, have compassion for that inner child.
And
And that book
I
is,
feel like her word choices are I feel like her word choices are really easy too, right? I feel like just like her language and how she plays with words, like it makes sense so easily. Like it's easy to grab to.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and she's a super intelligent woman, especially with the inner child. And you and I have learned so much from her. That I think it is a great read, great recommendation, especially on today's topic.
Absolutely. And I'm going to call her after this and make sure she pays us for this plug.
Yeah, please.
No, she does. She actually has no idea we're even
Because
saying this, but I am going to let her know. I'll probably just shoot her a text and say, thank you. You came up in our
yeah,
podcast in only wonderful ways and, things like that. Cause she's impacted us a lot. So
yeah.
she can certainly impact you the way she has us, because she wrote a book putting together her, years of wisdom, it's personal and it's client. Like she both, she walks her talk. So
Hmm.
it's you can tell when you read the book. Anyway, so
Yeah.
Show Up for Yourself by Janet Philbin. Um, moving on. So, it seems like we hit on kind of like three key points, right? That first step of like acceptance of what this journey is going to look like, committing to the grit, right?
Hmm.
Um, what was the second thing we said before structuring and simplifying? The second step. So we went from
Slow
acceptance
down.
to slow down, right? And that's more committing to the grit. Again, like slow, you're not going to approach something new going 100 miles an hour, right?
Mm-mm.
If you've never walked before, you're not just going to
Can't
stand up
run.
and walk. You're going to
Hmm.
have to crawl, and then you're going to have to hold on to things. And
Hmm.
you're going to have to build the muscle
The
slowly.
process.
It's a process. You're not just building the comfort zone, you're actually building the muscle, you
Hmm.
know? So then step 3 was simplify, make it safe, make it simple, make it structured.
Hmm.
4, find an accountability buddy, whether it's a coach. That's the word. That's the
I
word.
love it.
You
I
not
love
laugh in
it.
my
I
face.
don't think I'll ever not laugh hearing it.
The best part is that I have clients where I go into like motivational speaker mode and I'm like, you should see yourself the way I see you. You are so powerful. We have moments like that. And I'm like, and I'm your accountability buddy. And then we just die. We just were laughing. You
So
ruin the
good.
vibe of the power.
Oh,
And
it's so good. I love it.
so so 4 would be find that accountability partner.
Mhm.
How about after that? Where else might we go with this? What do you think? Or is there anywhere else to go? Or is that it? I mean, what do you think?
I don't think it's ever it, but
As soon as I said it, I knew that was coming. Yeah.
I think that the next part is then tracking, right? Like I love tracking progress. Like I love to see where I started and where I am now. And I like count
Mhm.
all those little 1% and I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm at 6% today. That's fantastic. This is where I've this is where I started, this is where I am." I think progress keeps us going.
Hmm.
Period. Same thing with like working out, right? You go to the gym the first day and I love it. It's like I get in the gym, I do my workout, and I look in the mirror. I'm like, why don't I look skinnier today? Right? Like I just worked out. Doesn't make sense.
Right.
Same thing. But after you go for 3 months and you look in the mirror, it's like, oh wow, that looks nicer, or what have you, and it keeps you going.
Yeah.
I think we need progress in order to have the momentum to keep going. Right?
Mm,
I think we need to see some positive results here. And then it's like, okay, this is why I'm doing this. I responded to this situation so much better, right? My inner child wasn't screaming at me this entire time. She was actually cool. So I was cool
mhm.
and it worked out well, right? Like that's progress.
Right.
Um, and I think from there, I think it's just then like like consistency. Like just be constant with the changes you're making until you feel like you're at a place of fulfillment, I guess, right? Until you're at a place of like, all right, I'm good here. I feel like the work I did was worth it. But then I still feel like then you'd still be wanting to do more. But
So,
Yeah.
and that's kind of where I was going with my question, like, is it ever enough? When is it
Mm.
ever?
Mhm.
And it's a tough thing to talk about, especially as a coach and in this conversation, because we're always looking at goal setting.
Mhm.
Um, but anyone who's actually lived their life and achieved goals knows that the second they achieve it, there's like a week of celebration at most, and then it's like, okay, what's next?
Mhm. Mhm.
So the enoughness conversation, ideally, will eventually come back to, when are you enough, and when are you going to
Mhm.
choose to believe that you are enough? Or
Mhm.
are there certain daily habits that just you need to commit to for the rest of your life to
Mhm.
align yourself with being enough? And
Mhm.
I know that for myself, for me, my spirituality has become so important to me that if I'm not meditating or talking to God in my head, and having a prayer related something like conversation a day, I don't feel enough. And
Mhm.
that's something I've had to accept about myself.
Mhm.
That's got to be a daily habit. And what's wrong with committing to 2 minutes of an unconditionally loving presence of the universe inside of me?
Mhm.
I mean, how
Mhm.
really could that be such a bad thing to commit to every day?
No.
What's wrong with that? So
Yeah.
I think everybody has their own definition of enoughness.
Mhm. I
And
agree.
ideally, we don't want it to be connected to doing. We want to know that we are enough as we
Mhm.
are,
Mhm.
because then there's no pressure on the doing, and you can go and create and live freely. But it's a hard place to get to.
Yeah. No, it definitely is.
Takes
Definitely is.
time. There's a balance with that, and I think we can go further into that in maybe in other sessions, right? That
Mhm.
relationship between you know my habits and what I'm doing, and my state of being.
Mhm.
Am I
I
enough
agree.
while engaging in these new habits? Am I coming at them from a place of believing I'm enough as is?
Mhm. And I think a lot of people struggle with the enoughness part, right?
Mm,
And I think and we're probably gonna have to do a whole episode on this because I think there's just so much attached to it.
yeah.
Um, but I think it's maybe next week we will do enoughness because it's kind of following at a really appropriate time of like, when is it enough? When have you achieved this, right? Like, when can we put a check mark next to it? Be like, all right, we're good.
Yeah.
Um, and especially with showing up, I think they're just so intertwined. And I'm really happy you mentioned it because I think it's pretty important component here.
Yeah, because we don't want to go down that rabbit hole of attaching our sense of self
Hmm.
to our habits or everything we're doing.
Mm-mm. No, no,
At
no,
least not completely. It's a part
no.
of it for sure,
Yeah,
right? We're
it's a piece of the
creating.
puzzle.
Right, right. We are creative beings, all of us. Like when we are creating, it's thought, word, and deed.
Hmm.
So the doing, the deed, very important. The
Hmm.
thoughts, the words, aligning those as well. But I'm a creative being even when I'm not doing that.
No.
So if I just relax, maybe it's easier to do all those things. Again, I don't want to
Hmm.
go too far into it, but something along those lines. Yeah, I'm
No.
feeling an episode like the toughness of enoughness or something along those lines.
Oh, love it, love
Yeah,
it, love it.
that flowed. I write rhymes every day when I write my book, so that was easy. But that just came. That just came.
Thanks.
um,
I'm gonna write that
okay.
one down.
There were two things that I wrote down as we kind of start to close up a little bit, because you and I seems like could talk about these things forever, and we're at about our 25-30 minute point, I think. Um, when we use the metaphor of like daily fitness or
Mm.
committing to the new exercise, whether it's making the bed, reading a book, positive self-talk, structured, simple things to achieve our goals, whatever they might be that we've broken down with someone we trust, a coach, a counselor, a friend, an accountability buddy. Um, there, she's laughing. So one thing that comes to mind was, if I'm building a new muscle in the gym, my nutrition has a huge part of it,
Mhm.
right? I could go to the gym every day and work my butt off. But if I'm consistently going to McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's for every meal, and then go home and eat a bag of chips and a candy bar and a bag of Reese's Pieces, and like,
Mhm.
I hate to say it, even if I look a little bit better on the outside, I'm destroying myself on the inside.
Mhm.
So it's almost, so when we talk about nutrition, there are ways to exponentially support yourself
Mhm.
exponentially, right? I mean, ask any personal trainer. They will tell you
Yep.
nutrition is 60% of it, if
Yep.
not 70% of it, and your exercise is 30 or 40% of it. Nutrition
Mhm.
is everything. They will all say that, every one of them,
Yep.
right? So where I'm going with that is, what are you digesting on a daily basis? Are you listening to this podcast as it comes out? Are you reading books? Are
Interesting.
you talking to a coach consistently? What kind of information are you filling your head with? Because, we talked a lot in this session about beliefs that
Mhm.
play into the actions we take or feel the urge to take.
Mhm.
What are you feeding yourself? What are you surrounding yourself with? So the word nutrition comes to mind. What are you digesting mentally? What are you taking in,
Mhm.
outside of your sessions with your accountability buddy, your coach? And then from there, I would also say community. I think
Interesting.
surround a community of like-minded growing people is
Mhm.
actually quite hard to find.
Very hard. Mhm.
It's hard to find. So if you can find one, or you have friends, or you have family, or you have access to a community like that, a lot of people have their temples or their church, or there's something along those lines that they utilize that for. Just something to stay committed and accountable to in the direction of your highest good that you've chosen for yourself.
Mhm.
A community can provide accountability, support, nutrition, simplified exercise, a safe space. You know, it, and for what it's worth, I guess, we can kind of close on this as well. Although I'll give you your closing comments, because you always have a comment, you always have something to say. Um,
Rude.
Rude, right? The the groups that we mentioned briefly before, we are starting them as of January 4th next year. That's one of the main reasons we're starting this group. I mean, we want to give people a sense of an actual community filled with like-minded, growing, pattern-breaking people.
Mhm.
And when you're immersed in that more than just once a week with a coach, or more than just in a book, I mean, that's what the group is called, chain breakers, for that reason, right? It's pattern breaking. That's what it's all
Mhm.
about. So I think it's really important to find something like that, even if it's not our group. You're not feeling us. That's okay. We're not going to win them all. So,
No.
but that's, I wanted to mention that too. I guess as we close, it's a good plug for us, because we're excited to really offer that for
Oh,
people,
absolutely.
for sure.
Absolutely.
We're both going
I
to be
also
eating it. So
I also think it's gonna be I think it is not going to be words today. I think it's different when you see real life examples doing some of these things, right?
mhm,
Like, I think when you're in a group setting and you see Bobby killing it, and Bobby's not doing 1% every day, Bobby's doing 5% every day. And when
mhm,
you leave that group, you're like, wow, Bobby did so good this week. You know what?
mhm,
Like, I want to come back to that group and tell Bobby how good I did this week, right? Like, there's a different type of accountability and a different type of motivation from real life people who you now know and who you have a connection to and who you like seeing their progress just as much as they like seeing your progress, and you gain something from the
mhm.
coaches you and I facilitate, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a really, really motivational, inspirational group that really just changes you,
Hmm.
right? And I guess that's our want and our desire out of the group. Wherever it will land. But I think it will be a really, really cool opportunity for anybody who wants to check it out or try it out, or even if they come once and say, I hate it, I never want to come back again, fine. But you tried it. That's cool too.
Yeah, and what's so cool about it too is you and I are, we're walking our talk as we expand into groups now, right? Like,
Hmm.
first it was, all right, we're establishing our coaching practice. This is new. We were always counselors. We were always in group practice doing insurance work. Da, da, da. We had the safety and the comfort of that. We
Hmm.
branched out. We did our own thing with coaching. We branched out into the podcast now, right? First one we recorded, second we recorded, with totally different feel than this one.
Hmm.
Feels so powerful and so good, right? I feel so
Hmm.
proud of myself rather than
Good.
uncomfortable and insecure,
Yeah,
and we're only 5 in,
I know.
and we're that much more comfortable,
Hmm.
and then, just continuing to grow, continuing to walk our talk has naturally evolved into offering groups now. So, I'm always curious to see where things go next, but it's just a very natural, this group is not just us leading and helping people change.
Mm.
It's for us too. I mean, we
Mhm.
get so much out of it with you guys. It's so selflessly selfish, you know,
Mhm.
in such a good way. But it's real and it's raw, and
Yeah.
we may cry together, we may laugh our faces off together. We will definitely laugh our faces off together.
Yes.
But it's
Most likely.
just hearing Bobby say, God, love Bobby, by the way, love Bobby.
Yeah, I know. It's my go-to.
Bobby's my boy. But hearing him say things like, I'm no different than you. I'm an average guy. I've always done,
Mhm.
I was raised this way. I wasn't given more than you. I just got tired of the pain.
Mhm.
I just got fed up with the same old, same old. So I committed to the grit.
Mhm.
Something, hearing Bobby say that,
Mhm.
it's so necessary, so powerful,
Absolutely.
because you and I
Absolutely.
can say the same thing. So we got to slow up. We've been going probably 40 minutes or so. And I'm tired of hearing us. You must be tired of hearing us.
Yeah, I'm tired of hearing you. So
That
wrap
was
this up.
lovely. Thank you for that. And we're done here. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Jessica, thank you as always for all your insights, your partnership, your everything. It's just been such a pleasure. Most of the time. Other times you're just obnoxious and horrendously annoying. But most of the time you're great.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it as well.
Backhanded compliments. No, this
Love
is
'em.
this is awesome. This is awesome. We will see you guys next week
Yes.
as we talk about the toughness of enoughness.
Love it.
All right?